Hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar, which is brought to you by Shared Services Link in association with Redwood. Today we are looking at the Jabil case study for automation game changers for R2R. My name is Susie West, I'm the founder and CEO at Shared Services Link, and I'm delighted to be introducing Scott Barone, who is Finance PMO Director at Jabil.
Great, thanks, Susie. Appreciate it very much. I'll give you a little bit of background on Jabil and about our systems team, a little bit of information about life before automation, what the game changers are, and kind of our current results and benefits that we've achieved. So the Jabil and systems background, Jabil is a contract manufacturer. We don't manufacture anything for ourselves. We manufacture for our customers. We're a $30+ billion corporation. We have over 140,000 employees worldwide and 100+ sites strategically located around the world. We're a very global company. A little bit about our team, about the finance digital transformation team. We actually sit within finance. We actually report up through our CFO. We, our digital transformation team, own the major finance systems for forecasting, planning, consolidations. As I said, we sit within finance and report up to the CFO. We differentiate ourselves by removing the bureaucracy and roadblocks that typically sit within IT. Don't get me wrong, IT does a very good job with what they do. They have a lot of hurdles and structures and things that they have in place that they have to follow. With having these systems, if you will, sitting outside of IT, it allows us to be very nimble, very quick in terms of turning things around. We are constantly changing, at least on a quarterly basis, sometimes monthly, but quarterly, our hierarchies, where things sit with what customer, within what company code and so forth like that. And in order to make those changes, we have to be very nimble. We have to be very quick. We have to make things happen in weeks, months versus years. Our team actually come out of the business, if you will. So some of our team actually sat within IT. Some of our team sat within the actual site finance, things of that nature. But we have a very deep business acumen, which allows us to actually, when we're working with our finance customers, to challenge ideas, to challenge concepts, designs, and things of that nature. We have a very good depth of the finance knowledge. We're proactive in suggesting and implementing change too, and driving strategic initiatives within finance. Realistically, you could look at us as being as an internal consultant. We have that depth and breadth of experience to be able to activate those different types of things. So prior to Redwood, we've implemented a number of finance systems. Redwood now is part of that. But if you look at our landscape or you look at our architecture, the major systems within finance, as I said, sit outside of IT. So we do our closing, our consolidations within Cognos Controller, which has all the information that we need in order to report to the SEC. We have IBM TM1, which does all of our forecasting. We actually have a system, it's a software application called Pega that we do all of our budgeting with, all of our capital planning. And then we also have Redwood to help us with our finance processes and moving through the landscape on there. There are some systems here, if you want to look at it from a holistic perspective. We have 4 instances of SAP that we utilize for our ERP systems, and then we sit some other systems on top of that to manage our day-to-day life, if you will. Prior to that, from a systems perspective, we actually went out and we looked. We knew that there was a lot of things that were ripe for automation. We, within Jabil, did a study and did a survey and worked with our sites and so forth like that. It was really interesting on the R2R challenges in terms of the balance sheet certification, reconciliations. That actually boiled up to the top for us in terms of things that we should be looking at and that we should tackle. But above and beyond that, we looked at a number of other processes. And through that, we determined that we could probably save, as we benchmarked against other companies and what they were doing and where they were going and so forth like that, we could probably save around 240,000 hours per year in the complete close process, not just certifications, but with a number of other processes that we develop in-house and with Redwood. But being realistic and being understanding of Jabil being Jabil, what Jabil is, we probably could achieve 40 to 50% of that in reduction in manual effort along the way. I'll get into more in depth on those benefits and what some of those results are. But as I said, coming out of the gates, we decided to focus on balance sheet certification. We also, when we look at the Redwood tool, Redwood does have a number of processes that they have that are out of the box, or pillars that they would call them. We also are addressing other needs that are internal to Jabil, but the Redwood platform allows us to do that. And the mantra of what we do from an FDT perspective of being able to be nimble, being able to be quick. For instance, our intercompany netting and forecasting allows us to automate the manual data retrieval of intercompany payments that are due between our sites and so forth like that, accumulate that and move money around that needs to be done in a very quick fashion. We also did a journal approval verification report, and that allows us to retrieve the manual journals that were posted, look at who approved them, and make sure everything is in the right order from that perspective. like I said, we did the analysis, we did the surveys and drove for that. That's kind of our life before automation, if you will. What drove us to looking at Redwood? Well, we're looking at 4 game changers that we believe Redwood really helps us to achieve. Number one is the time savings. When you look at time savings, especially when you look at this tool and the focus is there, the majority of this is around the month-end close. Anytime you can save an hour out of the month-end close, you folks probably know that there's a lot of rigor, there's a lot of structure, there's a lot of elbow grease that goes into that. Anything that we can do that we can save time is hugely beneficial, at least to Jabil. There's also a cost savings that are associated with this. And that cost savings, some of it is a soft savings, some of it is hard savings or cost avoidance. So with utilizing the Redwood tool, it allowed us to actually pull a number of items into here and allows us to be able to move quickly and be able to move forward in a very positive direction so that we minimize our developmental efforts. Within Redwood, a lot of the number of the processes are already predetermined, if you will. We work with Redwood and we do some other design and enhancements and so forth like that. But out of the box, it's a pretty quick and easy to get up and running and to implement the processes, as well as with us utilizing that platform to develop our own in-house processes. The depth of knowledge was easy for us, and being able to utilize the tool and be able to come up and running and come up and running quickly on it and actually see benefit out of the gate. More on top of that is standardization and centralization. So with the Redwood platform, we standardize, we look at getting our house in order, if you will, first before we do automation, and we standardize those processes. And also along with the standardization, we bring that it's centralized within the Redwood platform, which actually helps us even from a cost savings perspective with audit fees and things of that nature, because we're centralized, because we're able to keep everything in a single place and drive it from that perspective. And then really the icing on the cake is the quality of data. Because we're here centralized, because we standardize the processes, because we've gotten our house in order, the quality of the data is a lot better. And it allows us to actually during that close process to be able to not second guess ourselves and being able to let things flow through naturally as they should, thus adding to that time savings. So if you look at box number 1 there, SOX and ITG compliancy, we've actually certified Redwood as a SOX compliant tool. So we overcome the hurdle of actually every time you develop something, especially when you have to have SOX controls around it, the rigor and the process that goes around that, there again, saves us a lot of time, saves us a lot of energy around that. But we were able to do that and get our systems compliant in a relatively quick period of time, which is really key. Number 2 is the alleviation of controls at the site. So as part of this, we've had a number of manual controls, a number of things that we had to do. We had to keep them on different servers at different places and things of that nature. But because we've been able to bring those controls, we've been able to automate a number of those controls and bring the data and so forth within Redwood, we've actually got that performed it globally in a centralized instance, in a centralized area, which makes input and retrieval a lot quicker and a lot easier to do. Number 3 there, on top of that, it allows us to spend less time or effort supporting our auditors. Because of having that centralized data within Redwood, that means less time that we have to spend with the auditors. Prior to Redwood, our auditors, our external auditors would come and they'd actually go directly to the sites for those sites that were in scope for that year and actually ask the sites to provide this, this, and this, so on and so forth. And the issue was they go to different sites asking different questions, asking different ways of looking at it. Through the evolution of Redwood, we've been able to actually curtail that. We've been able to have meetings and set things up with our external auditors and say, look, we've got this tool. Here's the way you need to look at it. Here's all the questions that you've always been asking. Here's how we're answering those. And we've gotten them comfortable with that product, with that means of being able to look at the data, which has alleviated a lot of issues at the site level in terms of time, in terms of resurrecting the data that's being needed there, but allowing our sites to actually not have to worry about that anymore and focus on the things that they really need to do. And that's in terms of doing our close process. For number 4 there, it's actually helped us reduce our audit fees because we've centralized that. We've put things in a single instance, single place. Our auditors work with our internal audit. The data is provided in a very succinct manner, very quickly. They're in and out. It's actually helped us to alleviate any findings that would have been done from an audit perspective and have got us on a lot clearer path now. And then box number 5 is the risk-based analytics. We have some analytics behind the scenes here where we monitor what's going on. The journal entries, account reconciliations can all be performed within Redwood. But in terms of that, having that centralized location, having that standardization minimizes the risks that are associated with manual intervention, manual entry. And then the next one here, box 6, is Redwood, which is really cool for us. It's fully customizable and the functionality within it. As I mentioned earlier, we've developed a number of in-house processes that allowed us to actually achieve benefit, achieve success, and really help our customers, our internal customers out to do the things that they need to do. So when we look at Jabil and Redwood, as I mentioned, Redwood provides a platform that allows us to do a number of different things. They have a number of pillars that they work with too. So we've got a good mix of what's custom to Jabil, if you will, of what we're working on and what we're doing, as opposed to what's out of the box out of Redwood. So I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but you can see that we've done a number of different things that are custom to Jabil, a number of controls, automations, and we've got a backlog of things that we're going to be looking at for future automations. But out of the box for Redwood, I mean, the balance sheet certification has been huge for us. We're also in the midst of doing the closing task list, closing checklist, as well as more strong controls monitoring and management with using that functionality out of Redwood. And then we will focus on the subledger processes. Redwood has a good set of subledger processes. It's probably a little bit more overkill for Jabil. We only need things at a summarization level, so we're developing our own in-house for that. And then we'll follow through with managerial entry processes and intercompany processes. Point being, there's a number of good pillars within the Redwood, but the platform itself lends itself to ease of use and ease of development. There are some critical success factors to implementing not only this tool, but any strategic tools in general. I mean, the old saying is it takes a community to move things forward. And we look at that from a community perspective in terms of how we implement Redwood within Jabil. First piece about that, if you look at that FDT circle that's on there, FDT, our team provides the strategic leadership and the ownership over the tool. As I mentioned earlier, the tool resides within finance and gives us those abilities to actually be very nimble, very quick to market. But we don't do it in a void. We work with primarily our financial reporting teams to actually make sure that we have the right policies and procedures that are in place, drive standardization across our segments, across our divisions, across our financial sites, updating the docs, republishing, and there again, not done in a void, but working with our sites, working with site finance, working with the business units to make sure that we're answering the questions that they need, to make sure that they're providing the information back to us. They're giving us requirements, and they provide subject matter experts that are needed for design and testing. So it's within this community sphere, if you will, that allows us to be successful, that allows us to actually roll these things out in a clear, succinct manner, minimizing the change management that also goes along with this, because we've got the buy-in early on for the things that we're working through that we want to drive to success. So within that, then, as we're rolling through and we look at the different products and different things that we roll out on there, I'll talk about the benefits from a Jabil perspective that we're receiving. One of them that I mentioned earlier is the alignment with our site finances and with our shared services center. We have alignment with them of what we can do, what we can't do, and where we want to go, and driving a roadmap, a strategic and a tactical roadmap with their input and with their support. We're SOX compliant. The tool is SOX compliant. We don't have to worry about that anymore moving forward. We can develop what we need to do within the Redwood platform. We already know that we're SOX compliant and we can adhere to the ITGCs and so forth. It's flexible and it's scalable. There's pillars that are out of the box functionality for Redwood itself, but there's things that we can do internally that allow us to do those things quickly, allow us to roll them out quickly, and allow us to receive, more importantly, the benefit and usage in a relatively quick period of time. I mentioned the streamlining of the audit. I mean, that's huge. I mean, if you guys are working with external auditors, you know how sometimes you can get beat up or how sometimes they can lead you down a path you don't want to go down. So through this and within this, we've actually streamlined that. We streamlined that process. We streamlined the interaction with our external auditors, which is a big bonus for us. It's fully supported by the FDT team. We own the product. We own the vision. We own the strategic nature of it. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, with input and with guidance from our strategic CFOs with the different divisions and such, and working with that moving forward. Importantly, it reduces the manual work time. I mean, that time savings, as I mentioned earlier, is huge. I mean, especially during the month-end process. Anything you can save there, you guys probably know that going through that month-end close is huge. At Jabil, we got a 5-day close, including the management reporting that goes on within that during that period of time. Don't get me wrong, we put a lot of elbow grease into it, but with the utilization of Redwood and where we're going with it, that's going to actually alleviate a lot of that time and allow us to actually not have to put in a lot of overtime and allow us to have a lot better quality of data also as we're working through some things and minimize our back and forth with the sites or things as things are rolling up, which allows us to pivot to the analysis and the value add. We can actually look at the numbers in a non-rushed format and actually make critical decisions in a quicker period of time. So if you look at that from a Redwood perspective, you know, and we look at our roadmap of where we've been and where we're going, we started out, as I mentioned, with the balance sheet certification process and have rolled that out. Have been rolling that out over a period of time. And as part of that rollout, we started with Redwood on the on-prem platform. We worked diligently with Redwood to develop the means of getting from the on-prem to the cloud version. We just went live on the cloud in January of this year. So we're fully in the cloud with Redwood. It was a very smooth experience, no issues, no problems. All of our data came forward, and we're really happy to be on the cloud. And there again, alleviate some of the admin burden, if you will, from our team that they had to do with the on-prem version. We also, like I said, we've developed a couple internal processes, but as we move forward, as you see on here with where we're going and what we're doing, and we're ultimately going to save a great deal of time as we roll out off of the Redwood platform on there. As I mentioned earlier about getting our house in order and cleaning that up, I mean, we're working on the managerial entries process and policies, setting new thresholds. At this point, we've designed the SOX controls, the closing task list. So we've designed a global task list that we follow. We know that sites do have one-offs that they need to do, and we're working with the sites to build those one-offs within that task list. On top of that, all our SOX controls management and the repository of those those controls, the evidence and so forth like that is actually being put into Redwood and driving it from a Redwood perspective. They're again driving centralization, standardization, good quality data. We are kicking off the closing task list here formally with our pilot sites later this month. I'm anticipating a good rollout as we move into our FY25, which will be starting a global rollout of that of FY25 in September of this year. When you look at it as a whole, we cut our teeth on balance sheet certification. Our current state with balance sheet certification is that we've actually implemented close to 70 company codes at this point. We run our businesses based off of company codes. So we've got 70 company codes up and running on Redwood in 2 different instances of SAP. We are anticipating the end of this calendar year to be completed with that. When we do have that completion of from a pure balance sheet certification process, we'll have a total time savings of about $14,000 to $15,000 annually. But there again, it's a fully supported rollout, provide all the training and resources. It's fully SOX compliant within there. When we actually took about it and we roll it all up into a good summary here in terms of the game changers in R2R, time savings, cost savings, standardization, centralization, quality of data. At the completion of our month-end closing processes, along with the manual journal entry, along with intercompany, we will yield approximately 95,000 to 120,000 hours annually. That's a huge number. But using the technology, this Redwood technology, this Redwood platform, it's resulted in a good deal of cost savings already. And we'll continue to roll those out. It's helped us reduce our audit fees as well as developmental fees. And finally, by automating the manual tasks at the Redwood platform, it takes a huge amount of risk out of the equation, driving towards data quality and minimal rework based on that.